Welcome back, everybody, to Nuclear Bunker Living. Today we're taking a full tour of our Titan 1 complex. So we gain access through the entry portal. This is the gateway to the entire Titan 1 underground complex. It's a vertical reinforced concrete cylinder 27 feet in diameter and about 70 feet in height. The silo itself had two massive doors protecting the complex from the terrific forces of a nuclear attack. Each door opens with two powerful hydraulic rams, which allows a 4-ton capacity freight elevator to rise to the surface. Now, this elevator carried equipment and supplies too large for the stairs into the complex and allowed for the removal of refuse and other material from the site without the terrible burden of lugging them up 7 stories of staircase. Now, at the very bottom of this cylinder lies 2 blast doors, which are the true doors into the Titan 1 complex. Now, upon entrance, veering off to the right, we enter the powerhouse. The powerhouse is the second and larger of the 2 dome structures of the Titan 1 complex at 130 feet in diameter and 54 feet in height. The powerhouse was a massive concrete and steel reinforced structure that contained 4 diesel generators and switchgears to supply the entire complex with electrical power. Through this narrow stairwell, we gain access to the mezzanine level of the powerhouse. The mezzanine level was chiefly populated by various water tanks, water pumps, fuel and lube tanks, compressors, and the enormous amount of ductwork that supplied outside air to the generators and the surrounding rooms. What you're looking at here is the entrance into the powerhouse air exhaust. This area is pretty self-explanatory for the most part, and as expected was largely built around the discharge of diesel exhaust from the generators. There also was other hazardous discharge here, such as corrosive, volatile, and toxic fumes associated with various processes and the operation of the machinery in the powerhouse. So as we reach the end of this corridor, we come across asbestos-laden flooring right in front of this massive exhaust fan. And just behind that, we have 5 massive blast locks. These blast valves waited for any sign of a nearby blast that would trigger them to slam shut in a fraction of a second, protecting the interior from the shockwave. After the destructive forces had passed over, the blast valves would reopen, allowing the complex to breathe and operate. The grim reality of fallout was once that the blast valves opened again, contaminated air would be actually drawn back into the complex. As we exit the exhaust tunnel, we pass by 2 massive 67,000-gallon main diesel storage tanks. A little bit further down, we see the much smaller 5,000-gallon diesel tank off to the right before exiting this side of the powerhouse. Crossing over to the other side of the power dome, we now are entering the air intake. With 4 large generators to supply, the powerhouse required an air handling system that was a structure all unto itself. Upon gaining entrance, we can see to the left some shock-mounted ethylene glycol lines in the tunnel connecting the powerhouse and the air filtration facility. Being that this is one of the first Titan 1 complexes to be built, you are actually looking at the original layout of the air intake. Later on in later constructions, this area was completely redesigned. One similarity throughout all of these complexes, though, is that they had radiation monitoring equipment in these areas, since fresh air would be pulled from above to service this underground hardened complex. Now, as we head further back in the air intake facility, there isn't much left minus these massive 16-foot high heating coils. This side of the filtration facility is where the air enters the cyclonic dust separators through the dampeners that you see on the right. And at the very back of this level, we have 5 more massive blast locks. And as we roll around to the other side, we see the exit side of the dust collectors that is closed off from the blast valves. And again, a lot of this has been scrapped during the decommissioning phase. So with that, we're going to head out of the air intake and back out into the power dome. Now these tanks that are on the mezzanine level are more remnants of the processed water system that resided within this complex. Now as we circle around the mezzanine, we take a look at these 3 large rust tanks, which were a part of the processed water system and removed iron and other minerals from the raw water pulled from the aquifer below. Heading out of the power dome, we head to the main tunnel junction. That consisted of the control dome entrance, the blast lock and launcher entrance, and the antenna silo entrance. First up, we're going to go left and head down the extremely long antenna silo personnel tunnel. So the antenna terminal room begins straight ahead where the tunnel widens. Flanking this aisle were rows of control equipment for climate controls, the antennas, communications, and a cabinet of guidance hardware. These twin antenna silos house the radar dome antennas for tracking and guiding the missiles along its trajectory. There were 2 antennas to provide redundancy in case of a failure, since without a guidance antenna, the entire site would be rendered useless without a means to control its missiles. So after taking a look at Silo A, we're going to head across the interchange into Silo B, where the other antenna silo is located. Pretty much what you're looking at is just another mirrored version of the first silo that we just were inside. Now, if both of these antenna silos were knocked out, the last stage of redundancy allowed other neighboring Titan I complexes to actually connect and launch the missiles that were here if both of these antennas were down, which is absolutely impressive, being that this was all constructed in the late 1950s and early 1960s. And with that, let's head back to the main tunnel junction. From the main tunnel junction, the connecting tunnels slope upwards into the control dome, the brain of the Titan I complex. This is where the orders were received, the targets selected, the countdown initiated, the trajectory calculated, and the button would ultimately have been pushed. The lower levels was all the crew's quarters and environmental equipment for the most part. The real business of the Titan was conducted upstairs. Now on the second floor of the control dome, we find the guidance computers, consoles, phone systems, security and alarm panels, and a host of other systems too numerous to mention. In a nutshell, this is the brains of the whole entire complex. Now, after wrapping up the control dome, it's time to go into the blast lock and launcher area terminals. The first junction you reach along the launcher tunnels is the fuel terminal. This is where they used to house the fuel transfer panels, and other monitoring and fire suppression equipment. As we walk down this tunnel, we head to the next junction. The next junction you come into is the escape hatch, launcher area number 1, and the tunnel that goes down to launcher area number 2 and 3. Our first left will take us now into launcher area number 1. Now this is the first location that holds a propellant terminal, an equipment terminal, and also the missile silo which held the nuclear warhead. So as we pass this blast door and blast lock above, we are now headed back to the 3 buildings that reside at the back end of this area. So first up out of the main 3 rooms in each launcher is the propellant terminal. The propellant terminal is another cylindrical structure, 37 feet in diameter and 2 stories high, with reinforced concrete walls 18 inches thick, used to store liquid oxygen, liquid and gaseous nitrogen and helium, as well as equipment for controlling the transfer of these said gases from the storage tanks to the missile and to support equipment. From here, we're going to take a left down to launcher area number 1 and the equipment building. After a short walk down this tunnel, we finally reached the first out of 3 missile silos where the Martin Marietta 98-foot tall 4.5 megaton Titan I nuclear missile was stored. Now within the silo, the missile rests atop a launcher platform within a massive steel cribwork compromising the launcher system, where it waits for the orders that will transform it from a mass of inert metals and propellants into a weapon of terrible power. Next up, we have the first out of 3 equipment terminals. The equipment terminals were 4 stories high, containing aerospace operating equipment, aerospace ground equipment, power distribution, switch gears, hydraulic pumps, lines, and a plethora of other gear to support the targeting, checkout, exercise, and the launch of the Titan I ballistic missiles. Now here at our complex, each launch terminal is in various states of decay. This one specifically has been actually the most scrapped out equipment terminal out of all the rest of the 3 that are located here. Also, like the missile silo that you just saw, we again have flooding. This elevator car is completely submerged underwater, and as you can see on the other side, each level that's below us is completely submerged. Minus the random scrap metal that's strewn about on the old tile floors that reside in here, there's not much left to this equipment building. Now that we're wrapping up the exploration of launcher area number 1, we're going to head back to the exit hatch and to the next tunnel that leads to launcher area number 2 and launcher area number 3. As we take a left, we dive deeper into this Titan I complex. As we head down this tunnel, we are not only headed into an intersection that holds the entrance into launcher area number 2 and launcher area number 3, but also a small shaft entrance into the launcher air filtration facility that sits above where I'm walking currently right now. This area is essentially a miniature version of the powerhouse air handling facility. So let's take a step back into launcher area number 2, where the second nuclear warhead was here on site. So after gaining entrance into launcher area number 2, walking down this very long, corroded tunnel, we finally reach the second propellant terminal within this complex. The state of decay in this propellant terminal, and actually the whole second launcher area, is far worse than the first launcher area and the third launcher area within our complex. From here, we're headed down to the second nuclear missile and the second equipment building. Yet again, we stumble upon a severely flooded 160-foot missile silo. This silo is the dirtiest out of all 3. As you can see, even the discoloration of paint up top is absolutely noticeable. And to wrap up launcher area number 2, we head back into the equipment building. Yet again, we see more various amounts of decay within this structure. Now, after we leave the bathroom, we're going to turn the corner and take a look at this elevator car. We are absolutely lucky to have an intact car within this complex. Now, there is more stuff that we can salvage out of here, the doors, and maybe some stuff that might be in these metal piles, but otherwise we're looking at yet again another flooded equipment building. By looking up at the top level, you can see the cork, which was put in place after all of the major equipment was actually lowered down from that spot. Now, on our way out, you can see the level of rust and decay that have saturated over this blast door and blast lock. Now, finally, coming out of launcher area number 2, we are going into launcher area number 3, the final launcher area within this Titan 1 complex. Now, one thing to be noted about launcher area number 3 is actually its configuration is much different in the layout compared to launcher area number 1 and launcher area number 2. At the end of this long tunnel, it turns into an L shape, turning left down to the propellant terminal, missile silo, and equipment building. That is the difference, seeing that the other launcher areas, you can walk directly straight at the end of this tunnel into those areas. Now we have arrived at the third and final propellant terminal. Now, out of the 3, this is the only propellant terminal that we have removed water so we can explore the propellant terminal and the LOX tunnel to the right that goes directly into the missile silo. So last but not least, the final third nuclear missile silo. Just like the propellant terminal, we've had water removal efforts going on for a couple months now to get to the bottom of this specific missile silo. Now, these missile silos stand at 160 feet in height, so we definitely have some way to go. Now, to wrap up launcher area number 3, we head into the final equipment building. Just like the propellant terminal and the missile silo, we have drained copious amounts of water that was residing in the lower levels of this equipment building. Now, after draining out all of that water, you can still see these access ladders are completely intact. In launcher area number 3, the elevator shaft was practically stripped out completely. By getting rid of all of this water, it gave us full access all the way down to the bottom, which has been an awesome time exploring. Minus the launcher air filtration building and also the 2 external VHT antenna silos, you have just seen this complete Titan 1 nuclear missile complex. This is Exit signing out, and as always, thank you for watching Nuclear Bunker Living.